Uh-oh.
Okay, we'll start with this. As part of a most valuable promotion show, Canadian amateur standout Tamara Thibeault will be making her professional debut opposite the ring's seasoned veteran Natasha Spence. And this is more or less what I touched on in previous videos about how, those amateur standouts, once they start going pro and integrate themselves into the paid ranks, you might start to see a deeper middleweight division, super middleweight. Divisions that are traditionally barren with not that many girls in them. Say welter, junior middle, super middle. Tamara Thibeault, who I have been keeping an eye on, waiting for her to join the paid ranks, 27 years old, standing in at approximately 6 feet tall, fighting out of the southpaw stance. She'll be taking on Natasha Spence, who's been in there with a lot of good fighters over the years. There are easier fights to take on for what is a pro debut. The feeling with these amateur standouts is when they join the paid ranks, they're going to hit the ground running because they have all that amateur experience to draw from. Tamara actually holds a victory over America's own O'Shea Jones, newly crowned IBF champion in the junior middleweight division. She beat her in the Emmys. Now Tamara is going pro, scheduled for 6 rounds in the middleweight division. Against Natasha Spence, who saw action earlier this year in September against Melinda Watpool, who beat her by way of a unanimous decision, and she saw action before that in July opposite the ring Jadeja Green, who also beat her. Will Tamara Thibeault do the same? What Tamara represents is a fresh new face for the middleweight division if she so chooses to stay there. Oftentimes when a fighter debuts at a particular weight, it's not uncommon for the fighter to subsequently move down. That a fighter that debuts as a middleweight might decide to move down to junior middle to win their first alphabet title and subsequently move back up. That's how it happens sometimes. We'll see what she does. In the middleweight division, Clarissa Shields still holds 3 titles: the WBA title, the WBC, and the Ring Magazine. But the IBF and WBO titles are currently vacant. And it's conceivable that the other alphabet titles might go vacant too in the coming calendar year, since Clarissa's all the way up there at light heavyweight and means to unify. Thus, those 2 alphabet titles she holds, they might go vacant and become available for other fighters to fight for them. Tamara Thibeault may be coming into the middleweight division at a very opportune time to campaign there. That's if she stays at middleweight. If she eventually decides to drop down to junior middle, and I don't know if she will, there is a little bit more going on at junior middle than middle. There are at least 3 reigning champions in the middleweight division. Unified champion of Slovenia, Emma Kozin, newly crowned IBF champion O'Shea Jones of America, and the situation with the WBA title is unclear. Terry Harper is still registered as WBA champion, but by now we all know she's not campaigning there anymore. She dropped down to lightweight. She's WBO champion there. I think Mary Spencer has been elevated to full champion, though I'm not sure. In any event, there is a little bit more going on at 154 than there is at 160, so Tamara can elect to move down if she wants to fight some more familiar faces and familiar names. We'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. For now, she's set to make her professional debut later on this month. On the undercard of a most valuable promotion show, we're going to get our first look at her in the paid ranks. She's very tall for the weight, very long. That has its virtues, as well as fighting out of the southpaw stance. We know how tricky those southpaws can be. The boxing scene recently covered the story. Most Valuable Prospects 10 rounds out an immensely impactful year for MVP in which we've provided a stage to both today's biggest stars and tomorrow's upcoming champions, said Nikisa Badarian and Jake Paul, co-founders of MVP. It could not be more fitting that MVP's final event of this year returns to our mission to provide a platform for young and female prospects in this sport. We are especially excited to feature the professional debut of standout amateur talent and two-time Olympian in Tamara Thibeault against Natasha Spence in a battle for Canadian dominance.
Actually very excited to see what she can do. The middleweight division has cooled off in recent years, and it desperately needs a shot in the arm, a fresh face to become the ambassador for that weight class and everything that's happening there. I feel that young Tam.
I think she can be that face, that ambassador. She's got a sunny disposition, a good air about her. So we'll see how she makes out. Keep your eyes peeled for the professional debut of Tamara Thibeault of Canada.
Crawford.
Elsewhere in the world of boxing, the journos caught up with Stephen Espinoza at the press conference for the upcoming Gervonta Davis versus Lamont Roach fight, and they talked about the future of the PBC, given how things went this year on Amazon Prime. How will they go next year? Set the table for 2025, I said to the New York resident Stephen Espinoza. You know me, half a cynic, but also try to be optimistic. So I've been saying about you guys, the PBC, I'd like to see you back in 2025 with some vigor. Can you whet my appetite a little bit and feed that optimism? I did tell people throughout the year to be patient with 2024. It was going to be a learning experience to a degree. I was referring largely to the tectonic shift of the Saudis' entry into the space. Don't think I heard enough of that. I was referring obliquely to the state of the PBC as a vessel helmed by a ghost captain, the ultra-reclusive Al Haymon in my head. I don't think I talked to you enough, said Espinoza, who offered his take on what PBC 2024 amounted to. Amazon was going to jump in and be as active as Showtime was in its 37th year, but I sort of feel like the training wheels are off Showtime. Amazon has got their feet wet. They're well acquainted with it. PBC has got a good rhythm with them, and we've already seen. We've got 2 pay-per-views in the first quarter, he said. I think there'll be 2 more non-pay-per-views on Amazon.
So ask yourself a question. At a time when piracy is at an all-time high, and people aren't buying pay-per-views anywhere near as much as they used to, what does it say that they plan on kicking off the year with 2 pay-per-views?
That is after a year like this one, where they only did a grand total of 5 shows, 4 of which were pay-per-views.
I mean, do you see a lot of people buying pay-per-views in America these days?
This Amazon Prime deal did not turn out to be what so many hoped it would, that given Amazon's size and subscriber base, over 200 million subscribers worldwide, people were expecting more. Instead, what they got was an abysmal year from the PBC. Now, the 2 pay-per-views he's talking about, one of them, he speaks of the event topped by David Benavidez against a hard foe in David Morrell. They collide February 1st in Vegas with a strong undercard.
What?
I think there will be pretty shortly a couple of non-pay-per-views also in the first quarter, which is a good solid first quarter. Overall, does he agree this sport is again in a major period of transition? I spoke as a US-based fight fan when I told him, we want people to support what you're doing and hang you good sums of money to do it, but that has been a little bit more difficult in the past couple of years than it was 5 years before.
So don't forget what Stephen said and hold him to his word. He's saying there may be non-pay-per-view shows in the first quarter. Hold him to his word, and remember that.
Fair enough, Espinoza allowed. HBO got out at the end of 2018. Showtime got out at the end of 2023. Between those two, that's over $200 million in licensing fees taken out of the market, and there hasn't been anyone reliably to come in.
Bullshit!
And yes, the Saudis have come in with big checks occasionally, but that's not regular enough and it's not developmental. What they're basically doing is taking developed talent, but they're not developing young fighters. So it's a critical period for the sport.
You're not developing young fighters either.
So is he feeling optimistic as PBC is looking to the coming year? Will the people who want this segment of the sport to thrive be pleased in the next 12 months? Am I going to be happier as a fight fan of American fighters looking forward? Espinoza answered, I feel optimistic because of the following. I think that there's enough chaos, enough desperation, that we could finally come together collectively and right some of the flaws.
Desperation? Who's desperate? Matchroom is still signing unbeaten fighters and amateur standouts. So is Queensbury. So is Golden Boy. So is Top Rank.
Who's desperate? Besides you guys.
Oh, now you want to come together? It was one of your guys that coined the phrase, sides of the street, that started with you.
The article continues. I thought of the Naomi Klein, not Wolf, book, Shock Doctrine, The Rise of Disaster Capitalism. What's the doctrine when chaos comes? What comes out of chaos, I said. Was he saying that the ingredients that we have, the world as a whole, in flux and chaos? And this can result in bettering the sport. Look, everybody's got to come together and actually work together for the sport, Espinoza continued. If we don't, and not to be a doom and gloom, but if we don't come together, this sport is not going to survive the way we've seen it over the last couple of decades. I think out of desperation, people will come together, address some of the flaws in the sport, and hopefully come out much stronger. I believe that by the end of 2025, we will be operating in a much better place.
I believe veiled language for I don't know. I don't know what the future holds. That's what I hear.
And coming together for the betterment of the sport, yet you guys helped to create the division that sees American boxing where it is now, and now you're reaping what you sow.
What you've sown.
The article continues, he had me going there, but then again, I was all in with Waltz and thought ladies would carry the day on November 5th. What the hell do I know? Moving forward, I can't pretend to know what's coming around the bend in the next 12 months, but lots of it will be interesting. There has been a cultural swingback which could result in a bit of boom, maybe, for this sport of ours, which sure as hell is still outlaw black sheep when it comes to attracting sponsoring dollars from corporations. The proper pest in me came out, and I asked Espinoza to give me a couple of names of the guys that we might be hearing about in the next couple of months. There! As we're looking into the first half of the coming year, who am I going to want to be looking at? Look, there are familiar names, but I feel like they're forgotten, Espinoza said. The Charlos. I think the sport is better when the Charlos are active.
That's your answer. The Charlo brothers? One substance abuser and one who's missing in action?
Espinoza continued, they're big personalities. They're exciting inside the ring. They're polarizing, which is a good thing. Yes, Jamel didn't look great against Canelo. Jamal's had his challenges, but they're still young.
Still young? Those two guys are in their mid-30s. They're 34 years old. What do you mean they're still young?
That's not young for a boxer. The article continues. Espinoza might be correct in that their in-ring inactivity could be a plus if one or both truly seeks to hit a proper pinnacle from the standpoint of winning fights, not the earnings side. They're gonna be back, and I think there's a lot still left in this sport, Espinoza said. He deftly pivoted. We just need to get our shit together and have it working more efficiently than it has in the last few years.
But it's what they've done in the last few years that set the stage for where they are now.
You can't just create the division that they created and the practices, affect the industry the way that they did, to now call for change thinking you're gonna save yourself.
You're a day late and a dollar short.
So that when veteran boxing scribe Mike Woods asks you, who should we be paying attention to at the PBC in the coming year, the most you can come up with is a couple of guys in their mid-30s.
Irrespective of what you think of them, good or bad, that's the old guard.
The leaders of the new school are here!
Nobody cares about the Charlos.
What's been making headlines for the last 48 hours is Gervonta Davis's admission that he means to leave the sport of boxing in the coming year, and if he makes good on that promise, you hope to fill the void with two guys that are older than he is and less popular.
No, I don't think Michael Woods' intentions were malicious when he probed Stephan Espinoza for answers, though what he uncovered is less than encouraging if you're a fan, a supporter of the PBC.
Adding to the overall doom and gloom of it all, boxing insider Rick Glacier said, I've gotten a bunch of calls today saying that Al Haymon has disappeared again. Al Haymon is hiding in plain sight. Haymon's not sick. PBC is in financial ruin, and Haymon is embarrassed that his original dream of having a monopoly on boxing is now ending in complete financial ruin. Disappeared? No. The real answer is vanquished. PBC may barely, quote-unquote, stay in business, but a real player they will not be.
There's been widespread speculation about the health of Al Haymon and why he seems to have departed from the sport and his PBC briefly.
I've been hearing those rumors. Some people saying that he's sick.
One of the Charlo brothers hinted at it on their Instagram account. It would seem that Stephen Fulton has hinted at it as well.
Recent Twitter post where he says, "Shout out to Al Haymon, stay strong, and thank you for being a part of changing my life."
Why would he need to stay strong? What is he going through that he would need to?
What is Stephen Fulton getting at? The health issues he may be experiencing, the ones we've been hearing about perhaps? It's neither here nor there, and I don't wish that upon him.
I hope that he's okay, even if his PBC isn't.
Though as far as the future of it, it's hard to imagine that they have one with no new blood, no new faces to promote, no new fighters to usher in a new era of PBC boxing.
No commitment from a major broadcaster, giving them an annual budget to do shows, a steady schedule of shows throughout the calendar year.
And no concrete answers from Stefan Espinoza, former Showtime Sports president turned PBC consultant, tantamount to a full-time PBC employee. Just a lot of cockeyed optimism and hopes for the future.
Hope and hypocrisy.
It's hypocrisy for a PBC employee to now call for unity and bipartisanship for these outfits within the sport to work together when, upon the PBC's inception, that was not their intention. They were intended to be an affront to the established game in town, an affront to the Golden Boy, an affront to the Top Rank.
To the HBO that has since left boxing. Some years later, Showtime has joined them.
But the PBC still lingers, though for how long? So all of a sudden, you're talking about working together, but who needs to? Who needs you?
What do you got that anybody needs?
One of your star fighters, your quote-unquote star fighters in Gervonta Davis, may be retiring next year. Canelo, you've had Canelo on your side of the street for some time now, but who knows if that continues into the coming year.
He does what he wants.
He doesn't need you for anything. So if Gervonta retires and Canelo leaves, what are you left with? Couple of Charlo brothers in their mid-30s? What, David Benavidez?
What's his pay-per-view gonna sell?
There may have been a time when those were your assets, your bargaining chips, the strength of your stable, but that strength is waning.
Weakening.
And without a surplus of fighters to usher in a new era of PBC boxing, new faces, new blood, you'll go under.
I said it last year. Showtime leaving the sport of boxing doesn't have to be the end for the PBC, so long as they can secure a commitment from another broadcast partner to help them do shows, and not just do shows with what fighters they have, but sign new fighters.
It's without that they might go under.
When HBO left boxing, Top Rank didn't go under, Golden Boy didn't go under, they just changed their decorum.
So when Showtime leaves boxing, that's what the PBC has to do, but to the effect that they can operate at the same or better capacity than they were operating before. That is not the case. This has been an abysmal year for the PBC.
My honest opinion is it's not going to get better.
I don't see how it could, just based on what they're working with now, and that isn't much.
They need a new broadcast partner, and the problem with getting one is you've already been kicked off NBC, kicked off Fox, and kicked off Showtime.
You ain't got a stellar track record to where anybody's in a hurry to throw money at your company, and they've had a year to do it.
So it's not looking good.